Hello to all of you wonderful people that are sitting here watching us struggle. uh, they're asking me another question, but he's not here to answer it. So, okay, can everybody hear me and Jessica? Give us a thumbs up or something in the chat if you can hear us. Hopefully we sound fine.
There's a lot of people in the chat.
Okay, so for those of you that are here with us until we can get this Clint chat thing situated, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Jessica before we really get started?
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you match your shirt to the book cover on purpose?
My eyeshadows match too.
I did note, and your hair. So that did not go unnoticed.
Well, thank you. I absolutely loved the book, and I kind of wish we had named the challenge a little different since it was a New Year's Eve book, because we named our challenge for this book We Wish You a Merry Bookmas, but it totally could have been like a New Year's one.
Yeah, it takes place on New Year's Eve, so
yeah,
that would have worked, but okay.
I was not prepared for the tears that were dead.
Yeah, I wasn't either, to be honest.
Okay, we got Clint. Maybe, possibly.
Well, the echo's back.
Maybe, possibly.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
I'm just going to mute every time y'all talk, and when I want to talk, I'll unmute. Y'all have fun. I'm muting.
The only thing you missed out on, Clint, was Jessica asked me if I matched my shirt and stuff to the book, which I did. I matched my shirt and my eyeshadow to the book. Oh, yeah, I was totally not prepared for the tears that came, but I was trying to prepare everybody else because, like, Clint wrote me when he started reading it, and I was like, oh, prepare to cry. And somebody else was like, oh, I'm just starting it today. I was like, have tissues ready. Because I was not expecting that.
I wasn't expecting it either. When I first started writing this book, I thought it was going to be like just a really fun rom-com about two teens who meet in an airport, and I thought that's such a perfect setting for like a sweet love story. And then I got, I don't know, about 40 pages in, and this character Lottie just sort of appeared. She jumped into my head, and she sort of just, I don't know, pushed her way into the book. And when she started talking to me, I was like, oh, she's interesting. I really like this voice. And I started writing her in. And then I quickly discovered, or she revealed to me, however you want to see it, that she was dead. And I was like, what is this dead best friend doing in my rom-com? And the story just sort of evolved on its own. And as I kind of let her into the story, I discovered that she was this girl's best friend, and that there was this text message that Rin hadn't read, and I mean, it just unfolded from there. And then I just started bawling towards the end, and it sort of became this other story without really intending it.
Yeah, it was. I was totally expecting a cute rom-com too. My heart. I have a question for you. How did you come up with the names
of the characters or the book?
For the characters.
Oh, I have this weird obsession with naming characters that have specific nicknames. Like, I just, for some reason, have this weird fascination with nicknames. So almost every single character I have has a nickname that they go by. So I wrote a book called Addie Bell's Shortcut to Growing Up, and the main character's name is Addie Bell, but her real name is Adeline, and there's a whole kind of subplot about the nickname. And so with this one, I'm not sure where the name Rin came from, but I just liked the idea of someone being named Catherine, but not going by the usual nicknames of Katie, Kath, Kat. And so I thought, well, there's like another half of that name that nobody really uses as much. And I don't know, again, just it kind of derived from the nicknames. And the same with Lottie. I heard of the name Lottie, and I was like, that's such an odd name. And someone said, oh, it's short for Charlotte. It's like, oh, that's cool. Like, again, like the second half of the name, when usually we take the first halves of the names. So I mean, it's not that interesting of an answer. It's just I really like them as nicknames.
Well, it was funny because well, one of the main characters, Xander.
Yeah.
I have a thing about nicknames too.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my son was born, like when I was pregnant with my son, I knew what his nickname was going to be.
Yeah.
And we based his entire name around what we knew we were going to call him, which is Xander.
Oh, is it Alexander?
Yes, his full name is Alexander Benson.
That's cool.
Another thing was your prodigy kid. His last name is Benson, which is also a name.
Yeah. So you've got some like name things going on with this book.
I know. I was reading it and I was like, this is kind of weird.
It is weird that kind of stuff happens. I was channeling your family. Apparently.
Well, exactly. So what inspired the title for this book? Because I thought it was a really interesting title.
Well, so as I said, it was supposed to be like this nice rom-com, and I didn't have a title for it. I was going to probably call it something like, Delayed, or I don't know, but like some kind of layover, some kind of airport pun. And that was before the book kind of pivoted into this more of a grief book. And I was having coffee with a friend, and I really think that like books sort of come together from all these different pieces. Like you start out with an idea and you think you know what the book's going to be, and then your experiences while you're writing it and your experiences before the book was written, they all start to just like pop up in your subconscious, and they all merge into what the book becomes. So your book never ends up what you think it's going to be. So for example, in the process of writing this book, I was just randomly having coffee with a friend, and he was telling me, I don't even know how we got on the topic, but he was telling me about the second law of thermodynamics. And I had never heard of this. And I'm not really a physics buff or anything. And so he explains to me, he's like, oh, it basically means that there's like a law of physics that any system, if left unattended, will eventually end in chaos. Like if you leave something unattended, it will eventually kind of dissolve into chaos. And I thought, that's such an interesting premise. And then I thought the same thing happens with humans, right? Like if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't, nurse our grief, like it turns into this chaotic state. And I loved the kind of parallels between the physics and like our human emotions. And I just thought, what a cool concept for this book that I'm working on that's kind of turning into this grief book. And it just happened to have already taken place in an airport. And I thought, airport's also very chaotic. And just it was all kind of melding into get together. And that's where I came up with The Chaos of Standing Still.
Okay, I'm curious, what made you choose the Denver airport?
Well, I used to live in Denver, so I have spent many, many hours in the Denver airport. I just moved from Denver about 2 years ago. So Denver airport was like, I used to joke that I was going to have my mail forwarded there because I was always there. I was traveling so much for work, and there's a lot of layovers in Denver. There's a lot of delays in Denver. So I've never actually, knock on wood, been stuck in the Denver airport during a blizzard, but there have been many people who have. And I thought, for one, it's the kind of airport you would get stuck in during a blizzard, which I liked that. And the second thing is there's these really true conspiracy theories about the Denver airport, which are in the book, as you've read. And I just loved the idea of putting those into a book because I hadn't seen anybody feature those in a story before. So like fun side note is when this book first kind of came to me as this, I wanted to write this fun rom-com that took place in an enclosed location. That was kind of the original idea, was like, could I write an entire book that takes place in a limited time frame in a limited location and still make it interesting was the challenge. And my first idea was that the entire book was going to take place in an elevator, and these two teens were going to get stuck in an elevator. And I thought, that's really clever. And then I realized that like half of one of Jennifer E. Smith's books takes place in an elevator. I think I can't remember which one. This is what happy looks like? I forget. Somebody in the comments will probably chime in and tell me. So there was that problem that was kind of already been done. And then my agent just thought, I don't know, an entire book in an elevator, that just seems like too much. So I started brainstorming like slightly larger locations, like not as small as an elevator, but not as big as the world. And I came up with the idea of airports because they can tend to feel very claustrophobic when you're stuck there.
They can be massive when you're trying to get from one end to the other. Yeah, they can also feel very small. Yeah, I'm really glad it wasn't in an elevator because I'm claustrophobic and I'm not hard reading that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun. That's why I thought it'd be a fun challenge to have like two people fall in love in an elevator. But
I found the conspiracy stuff really, really interesting. And I was like, at one point I Googled the horse thing.
It's creepy, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He's miming it. Yeah, it's very creepy.
Whatever horse. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a name. They call him Blucifer. I don't know if I put. Yeah, I don't remember if I put that in the book, but the locals call him Blucifer.
Yeah, I had to Google Blucifer because I was like, real thing. I'm like, I want to go to the Denver airport and see all these things. Like, are those paintings and stuff that you mentioned in the book? Are they actually in that airport?
Yeah, they're still there. Although this is funny, they actually are doing construction on the Denver airport right now, and it happened about a year after the book came out. They started doing construction, and I was like, oh no, they're going to take out all of the cool stuff that's in the book. And I don't know if they will yet. But what's funny is the construction areas, they always put up these barriers, and they usually kind of put a sign up that says like, excuse our dust or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but they started putting these really funny signs up, the Denver airport did, that said something like, we're remodeling, or are we? And like, it was this really cute nods toward the conspiracy theories. And I thought that was really fun that they're kind of playing into them a bit as more people become aware of them. But yeah, the murals are up. I think that you can still see them even with the construction. It depends on where the construction is now. But every time I go through the airport now, I go and I stop by the mural and I look at it, and there's always somebody staring at it going, this is it. Like, not from my book maybe, but from all of these theories floating around the internet. I've never seen that happen. That would be cool. But people are like, yeah, this is that weird mural. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go and take a picture of myself in the Denver airport.
I have pictures of myself with the book and the mural. But if you stand there long enough and stare at the mural, it's kind of funny. People will stop and look at what you're staring at, and then you'll see the double take people do. They're like, wait, this is a very weird mural. What is this doing up in the airport? It's super creepy. So it's fun to watch.
Let's see. Rope Crewman 36 says, out of curiosity, were these characters based on people you knew, or did this come solely from your imagination?
I can't think of anyone specifically that I put in the book. Like, I never put people whole into the book. I always kind of break people up. That sounds really serial killerish. I will take like features of people or a look of someone that I want, and I sort of amalgamate these characters. I don't know if anyone in this book specifically came. I'm trying to remember. I wrote this book a long time ago, so it's hard to remember. But I don't think there's anybody who's like, oh yeah, that was them. I put them in this book. But I will sometimes hide people in books. Like, if it's someone I kind of want to pay tribute to, like, I will sort of just like drop them in the book. Like, I have a bunch of my old high school teachers will appear as teachers in my books that take place in high school. Like, I'll put a teacher in, and I'll kind of give them the same or similar name, and they'll teach the same class, and just as a little like tribute to my old life.
So how long did it take you to write The Chaos of Standing Still?
This was a pretty fast book for me. I think it took about 4 or 5 months to write the first draft. But it did go through several drafts after I sold it. My editor and I worked really hard on it to make sure everything was, really solid. And like I remember one of the drafts we worked really hard on making Rin a little bit more likable. Like, not that main characters have to be likable, but she was a little bit of a downer. Like, she still is. And that was kind of the point. She's going through some stuff. But I think one of the earlier drafts, she was like way more of a downer. And that's when we decided to give her the hobby of drawing. And that became a whole part of her process of how she processes the grief is through her art. So it ended up becoming a really cool part of the story that I love now. But at first she didn't really have a hobby. She didn't really have much going for her. So we decided like she needs to at least have something that she's passionate about. And that might help make her not so much of a like Debbie Downer at the beginning. So there was, we just worked each draft. We kind of worked on something new and to bring it to where it is now.
How did Xander's story develop?
Oh, Xander has been interesting. He like I said, I always wanted it to be a rom-com, so I knew I had to have, the love interest. And he started out a little bit flat, and like he didn't really have a lot going for him, and I hadn't really figured him out. And then slowly I started to I really wanted him to have something that he was trying to work through as well. I didn't want it to be just Rin who is dealing with stuff in this incident. I wanted them to come together and learn something from each other. And that's when there was a friend of mine who actually told me this story about a boy that she knew who got in trouble at school for yelling at a teacher, but he was like standing up for one of the other students, but it was like this really noble thing he did, but he still got in trouble. And that I liked that idea. And it just sort of spiraled from there. And I created a whole backstory about this book that he was supposed to read and this teacher he gets in this like little skiff with. And I kind of built it from there. And then my aunt and uncle are actually marriage therapists. So I kind of based Xander's parents a little bit on them, because like I always wondered what it was like to grow up as my cousins who like have these therapists as parents. Like you would think they'd be like the most well-adjusted people ever, but they have problems just like everyone else. But I liked this idea of like, what's it like when your parents are known for having written the book on raising children? Like, does that automatically mean you're going to be like the best kid ever? And I thought probably not. Right. So I just kind of liked that idea, and I played with that a bit.
Kind of like the you hear about the preacher's kid or whatever.
Yeah.
They're usually the opposite of what you would think they should be.
Exactly. And then I loved the storyline in Gone Girl, that she was like the inspiration for this amazing Amy character. Like I just like those kinds of dichotomies of these characters that you would think would be one thing, but they're actually very different.
So Clint put a comment out there that says he needs a movie.
I know, I need one too. That would be so cool.
Is there any prospects?
There's always prospects. There's always people like, oh, we got the echo back.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I was going to say the whole, especially with the McDonald's scene, where it was very much that rom-com moment where you burst out into song. Are you a huge Bengals fan, and is that why you used Internal Flame? Or did you discover the song because of how the relationship was working between the two of them? And now I'm going to mute my mic.
A great question. And yes, if there was a movie, that would be the scene I would be looking forward to the most coming to life. So I am a huge Bengals fan, and I mean, I'm not like a huge fan where I go see their concerts or anything, but I've been a fan since I was younger, and Eternal Flame's always been one of my favorites. That and Manic Monday, which is fitting because I wrote a book called A Week of Mondays, and there's a quote at the beginning about Mondays and Manic Mondays. Anyway, so the scene with Eternal Flame, that was a scene that was not planned. It was not in my outline. I do outline before I write. It just sort of happened, and I had them, I was writing the scene where they were playing that alphabet game where, you know, they're walking through and they're going A, and they have to come up with foods that start with A, and then you have to do B, and then the next person has to do C. And then, so they were playing this game because I thought, when I first started to outline this book, I thought, what's all like the things you could do to pass time when you're stuck somewhere? And that was one of the things that I came up with was play these, like, you know, kind of road trip type games. So I just started that scene where they were just going back and forth, and I thought it'd be like just a fun little thing. And then they get to the Bengals, and that's when Xander just shouts out, "The Bengals!" And he gets so excited. And it was again like, where'd that come from, Xander? And so I thought, well, he has to be a super fan of the Bengals. And then the scene honestly just kind of came from there, is that he starts singing to her Eternal Flame. But here's the thing about that song is, I don't know if you know this, but in order to print lyrics in your book, you have to get permission, and you have to usually license those lyrics. So you have to pay a licensing fee to be able to print the lyrics. Otherwise, you can use maybe like a few words without having to pay the fee. But if you want to print more than a few words of someone else's lyrics, you have to license it. So I'd never licensed a song before. So I had to go through all the research and ask people who had done it. But if you look at the copyright page of the book, it actually has a whole thing printed that there is permission to reprint those lyrics. So I did go to the people who hold the license for the publishing of the song, and I licensed those lyrics because that scene was so important to me. And it was basically that, or cut the scene, or just sort of allude to the scene, like say, oh, and then he stood up and sang Eternal Flame, and I'm like, that's not as good. He has to like sing it. So I did license the lyrics for that because it was important to me.
When I was reading that, I was literally singing it out loud because like every time a line would come up, I had to sing it. Like,
you can't not sing that song. Like, if you know the song, some people might not know it, but if you know it, you can't not sing it. I know.
I think Clint is over there singing it right now.
Yeah, but I can tell.
Totally, like I couldn't actually read the lines. I had to sing them. And then I would catch myself doing it out loud, like not just in my head. It was funny because I was reading this book and I was on a cruise or on the way back from the cruise and stuff. So I'd be in the car or just like sitting at a table at in the cruise and just start busting into Bengals. It was funny. But yeah, I love that scene. And I was like, that made me wonder if that was something that you're like a big fan of the Bengals and that's why you put that in there.
Well, it probably, again, subconsciously, yeah, that's probably why it ended up there.
Clint says, just saying, I've performed Eternal Flame in drag.
So that's a YouTube video that needs to be posted.
Mm-hmm. But you have copyright problems.
Yeah, you'd have to license it. Yeah. So it's copyright problems.
So do any of you out in the audience here, I guess, have any questions for Jessica? We'll like give them a moment.
Okay.
So you have a new book coming out.
Yeah.
It comes out February, is that right?
March 24th.
Okay.
I don't have it with me. I just have my phone case, which has it on there. It's called Between Burning Worlds. Oh, you have it. That's impressive. No, I don't even have it. Oh, you got an arc. That's so cool. Good for you. I have like a lot of people asking me how to get an arc, and I'm like, I don't even know how to get an arc. I have like one.
I got it at YALLFest.
At YALLFest. That's awesome. Yeah, so it's the sequel to this one, Sky Without Stars. So this is my sci-fi retelling of Les Miserables, and that is the sequel, and it's going to be a trilogy. So the third one will be out a year from then.
I think I'm not 100% sure that I may have that one from a book subscription box.
Oh, it was in one of those boxes. I forget which one. I forget what it was called, but you might.
I get a lot of subscription boxes. So, I'm pretty sure I got that, and then I got this at Yawfest, and I was really excited. Wow,
it's thick. Super thick. Yeah, it's a long one. We keep joking that my co-author and I keep joking like the third book has to be like 100 pages because we can't write another book that long. It's just it's exhausting to write that much and then have to revise that many pages.
Oh, I bet. How long did it take you to write this?
It's probably the longest I've ever taken to write a book. It took over a year, just with all of the revising and rewriting. And that book was really difficult for us. I mean, second books are often difficult, especially second books in a series. So it was it was no exception to that rule. We went through a lot of drafts, a lot of like rejected storylines, a lot of deleted scenes. So yeah, I'm glad that it's done.
So is this the finale, or is there going to be more?
There will be a third one, which we have not released. We have not announced the title yet, but we will be announcing it soon.
Okay. So Rope Crewman 36 says, what is your relationship with Doctor Who as a show?
Yeah, I guess there is a lot of personal stuff in this book. The Bangles and Doctor Who. So the Doctor Who storyline, people are often surprised. They think that I'm a super fan of Doctor Who, and that's why I put it in the book. But I'm actually more like Rin. I've never really understood Doctor Who. Like, I get that people like it, and that's fine. But I have this friend who happens to be a redhead who is obsessed with Doctor Who. I know, Clint's having a heart attack. Sorry, Clint. So I have this friend who has like this huge obsession with Doctor Who, and she has a Doctor Who phone case, and that's where I got the idea for the phone case. And she's always trying to get me into Doctor Who. Like, she's always like, no, you have to watch this episode and this episode. And I will admit, like, the more I watched it, the more I got a little bit more into it. But yeah, so I just thought it was an interesting like dynamic for their friendship with this, that one of them likes it, one of them doesn't. And then it becomes that phone case became such an important thing for her. And again, like, I'm obsessed with writing about things are not what they seem. And so the fact that she has this phone case, but they're not the reasons you think she has it. I really liked that. But yeah, that was just sort of a nod to me and my friend who go back and forth about Doctor Who.
I think my whole family likes Doctor Who, but I watched a couple episodes and I'm like, I don't get it. So yeah.
Well, okay, so he said it takes 3 seasons to like the show. Yeah, see, I watched about 2, and that's when I feel like, okay, it's growing on me. So I think if I watched another one, I'd probably end up getting into it.
I don't have the time to watch 3 full seasons before I can appreciate something.
It's kind of true. Yeah.
You know, reading a book and getting 50 pages in and going, I don't like it. DNF in it and putting it away, because I don't have time for that. Yeah. I only want to invest my time in the shows, which I don't really even watch TV much anymore, but the shows, but more specifically the books that I'm really enjoying, because I have a lot of books and I don't have enough time in my entire lifetime, I think, to read all of my books, but I want to.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, with TV shows, I end up rewatching a lot of stuff like over again, because I usually watch TV as a way to kind of shut down at the end of the day, or like shut off my brain. And I oftentimes can't handle any new storylines. So like, if I'm in the middle of a book, I'm like, I can't follow another storyline. I'm already following the one in my head. So I'll watch something old like Friends or How I Met Your Mother or Seinfeld, like that either doesn't have like a long arc story, or it's something I already know the story, so I don't have to pay as much attention.
There's only, I think, one show that I'm like that with, where I repeatedly watch it, and it's Buffy. I'm a huge Buffy fan. Hence naming my kid Xander.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think Clint is saying he is also. Faye says that Muppet shirt that Xander was wearing, that's all.
I don't remember how I came up with that Muppet shirt. Oh, I remember. It's because I needed her to have a nickname for him because they meet and they never exchange names, right? So I didn't want her to keep calling him in her head like that guy I bumped into, because it was super awkward to say that over and over. So I remember saying to myself, okay, he's got to have something like specific about him that she locks onto, that she can then kind of refer back to him as that. And so I just started Googling like funny shirts, I think, because I thought maybe he's got something on his shirt. And that's when a shirt with Animal the Muppet came up, and I thought, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like, and it's so opposite of of her, who's trying so hard to kind of be contained and keep everything in order. And Muppet, the animal, is like the chaotic one. So it fits with the theme of the book. So I think that's how I came up with it.
It's also very opposite of what you would expect the child of these parents to be wearing.
Yeah.
You would expect him to be very clean cut and like the polos or
which is exactly what he looks like on the back jacket of the book. Like, but that's not really him. Sure.
Hey Clint, I'm still talking with the StreamYard people this whole time.
Oh.
They said to have you try the headphones again and be sure that you have them plugged all the way in, and the headphones should fix the echo. So that's what they said. If you want to try that again.
He's like, okay.
Let's see. So Lestay 40 says, thank you so much for writing The Chaos of Standing Still. I'm really enjoying it as it's my current reading. I'm just like Ren, constantly asking questions.
The questions, yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you Google all your questions like Ren does? That's a question back to you.
I personally Google.
Is the echo still here?
No echo.
Oh. Yay!
No, it's there.
Damn.
Not so bad.
It's not as bad, but it's still there.
Yeah. You know what? It's probably doing. At least it's where you can speak.
True.
Oh, and
continue with
yes.
what y'all were saying.
My husband laughs at me for Googling so many questions. Yeah.
Ren is more like Kermit, trying to keep everything together when everything is hard.
I didn't think of that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell him we still have an echo. We're gonna go back to muting you. Love you.
Well, before we mute, I have a question. I went through your backlist to look at what books you've written, because I've now decided I now have to read everything because this was perfect. How did you get started with the Descendants books? As someone who's a huge Descendants fan, I was kind of curious how that all came about.
Yeah.
And now I'm muting.
Okay. So the Descendants actually came about because I had a friend who was writing books for Disney, and she was asked to write the Descendants series, and she wasn't able to because of her schedule. So she came to me and she said, I know you're a big fan of Disney. Have you ever thought about writing with Disney? And I was like, are you kidding? Like, it's like a dream come true. It's like being paid to write fan fiction. And so she put me in touch with her editor at Disney, and we hit it off. And I actually hadn't seen Descendants at the time that this was offered to me. And so I watched the movie, I watched all the shorts, I read all of the books they already had out, and I was like, yes, I'm totally going to do this. So that's kind of how it started. And then I wrote five books in that series. It's the Descendants School of Secrets series, which was really, really fun to write. The idea was that we were going to kind of follow some of the characters that don't have as big of parts in the movie, which was which was the case for everyone except the last book, which was Carlos's book, and that he had a little bit more of a role, obviously. So yeah, we did CJ, who is Captain Hook's daughter. We did Freddie, who is Dr. Facilier's daughter. We did Allie, who is Alice in Wonderland's daughter. Lonnie, who is Mulan's daughter, and then we did a Carlos book. So that was fun. And then after that, they actually asked me to write a series of Disney Lego princess books for younger kids. So those are for 5 to 7-year-olds. So there's, so far, I think there's 3 out from that series. So those have been really fun too.
Okay, so who's your favorite descendant?
Oh, that's hard. I like Evie a lot. I feel like she's got the best music. She has all the good songs. I don't know. It's really hard. I like them all. They're all really fun.
Favorite Disney princess?
Oh, Belle.
Oh, Belle, yeah.
Yeah, just because she's the reader.
Yeah.
She's got the best library. I mean, that's kind of the only criteria I have.
I literally was reading.
Showing me his library.
I finished reading. Oh my gosh, my brain is going blank. It's right here in front of me. A Curse So Dark and Lonely.
Oh yeah.
This retelling.
Yeah.
There was one point that I was just swooning over this book, and I was like, I want to hold it and dance around my library singing Belle songs
in a yellow dress.
Yeah. I was like, I was just like holding the book to my chest like this, going, oh, this book.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet. I gotta add that to my list.
It's really good. Faye Fines says, I'm the most Ren for sure. The anxiety portrayal. Jessica, is there some personal experience with that, or did you do a lot of research into it?
A little bit of both. I mean, I think everyone's got a little bit of anxiety about something. What I did was I tapped into a few things that I'm anxious about, which is a lot of like control issues, like being able to control things or having to accept the fact that you can't control everything. That's definitely something Rin and I share. And I think I tapped into that and then played it up a little bit harder. I have fortunately never lost a best friend in the way Rin has, which is devastating. And I definitely feel for her. But that's something I really had to kind of try to channel in other ways because I didn't have that. It's like going back and forth. I didn't have that experience. But then what I did was I mentioned my aunt and uncle are therapists, and I actually had them. I had my aunt read the book afterwards, and she works with a lot of teens with anxiety, a lot of teens with other emotional issues. And I asked her basically my 2 questions I asked her. One, are the therapist scenes working? Like, are they realistic? Do they feel like something a therapist would say to a teen patient? And 2, I asked her about the anxiety and the way that Rin's grief and anxiety manifests, and does that feel realistic? Particularly with Lottie being this manifestation in her head, because Lottie is really very much a manifestation of her anxiety and her grief. And I wanted to make sure that did ring true and that I wasn't representing anything falsely. So she read it and she kind of gave me the stamp of approval. So I felt good having that with having her opinion on the book.
Okay. Pretty Lady Tavi says, have any of your books ever been a huge challenge for you to finish?
All of my books are a challenge in some way. I like to tell people, so this one that's coming out in March, this is I think it's my 17th or 18th released book. And so there's a lot of books, right? And so people kind of assume, or they'll ask me like, oh, does it get easier? And I'm like, no. Unfortunately, no. The thing that gets easier is that you can do it. Like, you have all this proof that you can finish it and that you will overcome challenges, but the challenges themselves don't feel any easier to tackle. And I think that's because with every book that I write, I try to tackle something new, and I try to push myself as a writer to write something different. Or to be a better writer, or to be a better storyteller. So for this book, the challenge was really about writing my first grief book. I'd never written a book really about grief before. There's grief interwoven in my other books, but this one was front and center. And so that was the challenge. So with every book, there is this struggle and there's this fear in the back of my mind that I won't finish it, or that I will finish it and it will just suck. And a lot of times it does, because first drafts are supposed to suck. That's the whole point of them. So, you know, whenever I get to a place where I feel like I don't want to finish it, or I don't think it's working, or I feel like finishing it is going to be a huge task, I just have to keep reminding myself that it's going to be bad. Like, I'm going to write it and it's going to be bad, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix it. And the one lesson that I've learned over the past 18 books is that you do not know what you're writing until you're done. Like, you can think you know exactly what it's going to be. You can have an outline planned. You can have all of these like grand master plans in your head. You do not know what it's going to be until it's done, because just things just pop up. Like I was saying with this book, like all these different characters and all these different subplots, they pop up and you can never plan for them. So it isn't until you've gotten to the finish line that you sort of know what you have and know what you have to work with. So I just tell people, and I tell myself, just finish it. Like, keep going. Don't worry if it's good. Don't worry if it's going in the right direction. Just keep writing, because when you've finished, you're going to have an outlook that is so much more clear and easier to work with than you are in the than you had in the middle of the book. So that's kind of the pep talk I give myself with every book, is just finish.
I'm going to try to unmute Clint and see.
I don't know where he went. We're looking at the ceiling or something.
Hey, Clint, I'm unmuting you. Or not.
Are you
I think
there?
he's frozen.
Oh, he's frozen. Okay.
He does say, any advice for a writer starting a book?
Oh God, I have lots. Make sure that you're really excited about the idea. As I said, books are really hard to finish. Actually, the hardest part about writing a book is finishing a book. Starting a book, you know, some people struggle to start. That's fine. But honestly, like, getting to the end can be one of the toughest parts, especially if you're new and you don't know how to get to the end, or you don't have the confidence to say, oh, I've already finished a book, so I know I can do it. So that's why it's really important that you are super inspired by your idea. If you are sort of just feeling like, oh, this is an okay idea, I guess I'll try it, you're probably not going to have that inspiration to push you all the way through. And the one thing I tell people to do as well is write down why you're excited about it. Like, take a moment and write down some of your dreams for the book, or some of your visions, or even like why it excites you. Because then what you have is you sort of have this little flashback to go back to. And every time the book gets hard, you can take out that little piece of paper or that note and you can go, oh, that's right. This is why I started. This is why I like this idea. And that will hopefully push you through those hard times.
I have a question, because I saw that you completed NaNoWriMo.
I did. Yay. Thank you.
I failed.
Oh,
no. So my question is, how do you find the time to write? With everything else that's going on in life and everything else that you have to do, how do you find the time to write?
Is that a dog behind you? It looks really fluffy and cute. It's a cat. It's a very fluffy, cute cat.
Her name is Katniss.
Oh, of course. That's cute. I just saw this butt of fluff go by, and it was really, I could not resist. I have fluff butts as well at home. Okay, finding the time to write. I think the problem is in your question. You have to make the time to write. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. If you try to find time, it doesn't happen, it doesn't exist. You have to make it, and you have to prioritize it. So my philosophy on writing is that it always comes first. I think whatever you do in your life, whatever is most important to you, you have to put that first. You cannot start putting other things that are less important in front of it. Like, you know, when you wake up in the morning, like, what's the first thing you do? Like, you're telling, whatever you do first, you're telling the universe that's the most important thing to you. Like, if the first thing you do is check email, you're saying anything everybody else has to say to me, that's more important than what I have to do today. So what I do is I put my writing first every single day. And as soon as I wake up, the only things I do before I write are things that are geared towards getting me into the writing zone, like meditating, taking a walk, eating breakfast, drinking coffee. And then the first thing I do before I open a single email, before I look at a single social media account, before I turn on any televisions, before I open the news, nothing. I write. And because I want myself to be the freshest when I do it, and I want it to be the first thing in my day. So, they say the mornings are the rudder of your day. So they kind of point you in the right direction. And I think every time you write, you're pointed in the direction of being a writer. And so, I mean, it works for anything. Like if you're a painter, like wake up and paint first thing, like tell the world and tell yourself that this is the most important thing for you. So when people say like, well, I don't have time to write, and like, then wake up 2 hours earlier and you'll have that time, because that time you were just sleeping anyway. So your body will adjust. You'll be tired for like 2 weeks, but guess what? Your body will adjust. It's magic like that. Wake up an hour earlier, wake up 2 hours earlier and write first. So that's my little pep talk on making time.
Yeah, I struggled a lot with the trying to find time for writing with NaNoWriMo, because there was so much going on that I did put before writing, like Y'all Fest, and then my husband and I made a trip of it, and we stayed an extra like almost a week. That's cool. We vacationed, and then at the end of November there was Thanksgiving, and then Black Friday, and then we left to go on a cruise. It was like, I was like, okay, I really only have like 2 weeks.
Yeah, life gets in the way. It definitely does.
And I only got like 1,700 words.
Well, 1,700 is more than 0.
This is Xander.
Oh, hi, Xander.
She wrote a book with a Xander in it. Let's see. Somebody says, I just don't want to leave the video. LOL, I should have grabbed a pen and notepad. They're appreciating all the advice.
Well, it's being recorded, right?
Yes. You can actually go back and rewatch this later.
Yeah, just skip over the first 15 minutes when we try to do the sound.
Yeah, that was, I don't know. Last time we didn't have any issues with echoing or anything. And then it was like right at the very end of the video, we had an issue with sound. But it wasn't until the end. The rest of the video was great. So I don't know why we had such a struggle this time. Hopefully we won't have this problem for our next readathon. But oh my gosh, we so appreciate having you here.
Oh, thank you.
You should have seen the reaction both Clint and I had when you responded to me. I immediately got in contact with him. I was like video chatting him. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jessica Brody said yes.
Well, I'm happy. I'm so excited you asked me. Thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, this is really cool. He was like walking around his room going, oh my gosh. No, it was really cool. And you know, this was only the second time that we've done this with an author, bringing an author on, and hopefully we can get all of our kinks worked out in the future. But you're Adriana Mather is sort of a friend of Clint's, so asking her to join us last time wasn't as nerve-wracking, but asking you've got so many books out, and you know you're quite a popular author, and we're just like, surely she's going to say no. She doesn't have time for us. And when you said yes, we were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. So you inspired us to continue trying to do this, and get authors to come and join us. And yeah. Oh, sorry, I was reading the comments. Clint says, yes, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other questions. Do you have any other books in the work? I know that this is coming out in March, but do you have anything else?
I'm actually on deadline right now. I have a book due in, what day is it? 10 days. So it's actually the one I was working on NaNoWriMo. It's called I Speak Boy. And it is a middle grade book about a girl who finds a magic app on her phone that can read boys' thoughts. So it's fun. It's like magical realism, and I'm getting to play with a lot of like fun, like middle school tropes. And yeah, I'm having a blast writing it.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like something I want read. I love middle grade. I got into reading middle grade with Xander, and we'd read together each night. And I'm finding that I'm really enjoying a lot of middle grade on my own anyway. And that just sounds super cute. And I'm definitely looking forward to it when that comes out.
Thank you. I can't wait to be done with it. I'm at the point where I'm getting sick of it, but it's really fun.
So that's something that, when are you thinking
that will be out in spring 2021.
Okay, so have a little while to wait.
About a year and a half, yeah.
Well, we will definitely keep that. Ooh, maybe we can have you come back spring, because we do one every season. Maybe you can come back spring of 2021.
Put me on the books.
Awesome. Lestay says, wow, looking forward to that middle grade read. And Clint says that sounds really interesting. He can't wait for it to come out too.
Thank you.
Well, trying to think if there are any other questions I might have. Faye says she's looking forward to System Divine too.
Yes, me too.
This beast right here. It's beautiful. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about this series?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so you have the second one. I have the first one. So yeah, it's as I said, it's a Les Mis retelling set on a distant planet. So basically, the book takes place on. I like to change gears. I've been thinking about the middle grade, then talking about chaos setting sail. So it takes place on this planet of Later, which is one of 12 habitable planets that was discovered after Earth was destroyed, and in what's called the System Divine. So it's a 12-planet system. It has 3 suns or stars, and each of the 12 planets was kind of colonized or settled by a very wealthy family from the First World. We call it the First World. And each of those families came from a different country. So this is the planet that was settled by the French family of the Perez family. So they settled this planet of Later, and now it is 500 years later. And the rich live in luxury and on a big climate-controlled dome on the top of a hill, while the 95% of the population, the third estate or the working class, they live and work in kind of the slums. And it's a very divided planet, so it's very class divided. And there's sort of been like rumblings of discontent. There's a rebel group that has been dead for 17 years that tried to rebel 17 years ago and failed. And there's rumors that they're resurfacing. Amongst all of this kind of turmoil and chaos and sparks of revolution, which are very much inspired by the French Revolution, by the way, there are these 3 teen characters, Marcellus, Alouette, and Chatine. They are inspired by the 3 teen characters of Les Miserables, Marius, Cosette, and Eponine. So Marcellus lives in the dome, in the climate control dome. He's the grandson of one of the most powerful men on the planet. He's being trained to be an officer or a guardian of an officer of the planet. Chatine lives in the slums. She is the daughter of con artists. And then Alouette lives in a secret underground refuge that's buried underneath the surface of the planet. That it's a refuge that protects the last known library from the First World. So she's sort of a librarian of sorts. She's like our kick-ass librarian. And these 3 teens are when one of the royal family is assassinated. These 3 teens are kind of thrust together in the chaos of that aftermath of that assassination. So that's the first book. So it's sort of got like a French Revolution thing. It's got a Les Mis thing. It's got a Star Wars thing with the other planets. A lot of people are calling it the Les Mis meets the Lunar Chronicles, which I love because I'm a fan of both. And the second book comes out in a couple months.
I was wondering about because I haven't read the first one yet, and I saw both covers is the Eiffel Tower. So I was like, how does the Eiffel Tower fit into this?
So in our world, this is called the Perez Tower, named after the founding family of the planet. So the Perez are the royal family. So I can't tell you too much. I just can tell you that in the second book, the Perez Tower becomes a lot more important. And that's why it is so prominently featured on the second book. And as you can see, it is crushing the planet. So that's very metaphorical.
It looks really cool. It looks like almost like there's an engine controlling it or something.
Yeah, it's very kind of like steampunky looking, which I thought was cool. So I don't know. So what's really exciting is we just found out for the second book. So the first book had the first printing only had secret hidden covers underneath. So they had different symbols on them. So this is the symbol of the refuge that protects the library. There's also a symbol, I don't have it with me, but there's one of the royal family. And that we just found out that the second book is going to have 2 new secret covers underneath for the first printing, and we designed the emblems, the symbols that are going underneath, and they are so freaking cool. And they just sent us a proof, so I can't tell you what they are yet because we're going to announce them. But they just sent us a proof of what they're going to look like, and we just were squealing. They were so cool. So they're even better than the first ones. So make sure you get a copy from the first printing if you want those secret symbols.
I'll have to go and look at mine and the other one to see if it has anything on it.
It might not have it if it came with the subscription box. I'm not sure those had them, but if you bought it within the first month of release, it probably has one.
I don't know. I'd have to see because I'm sure it came in a subscription box. Because, like I said, I get a lot of subscription boxes. But they're the best boxes. The bookish ones are the best boxes. It's like Christmas every month.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jessica? Sarah Cosworth says that she's fallen in love with the sound of this book and needs to read it.
Thank you. I hope you like it.
And Clint is saying that he needs to add it to his book outlet order right now. She does get a lot. Well, I guess if nobody else has any questions, I just want to thank you again for joining us. It's been really great talking with you. And again, sorry about the sound issues we had.
No worries. Thank you guys so much for choosing my book to read.
Yes, and we look forward to your middle grade in 2021.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed this live show with us. And if you did, make sure you give us a big thumbs up. And until next time, continue to always be completely you. Bye.